So we've discussed how people are restocking their refrigerators in ridiculous ways, in which they're buying things like acrylic containers to put their foods and beverages in, making the refrigerators look like vending machines set to super ASMR sounds. But what if I told you it gets worse? Let me tell you a little bit about Fridgescaping. This is a new trend where people are not just organizing the inside of their refrigerators, they're also decorating them with plants, picture frames, books, and other odds and ends.
Lindsay Judish is a popular fridgescaper. She says she spent about 3 hours creating her Bridgerton-themed arrangement called What Else? Fridgerton.
I thought it was just so beautiful. Such a fun way to romanticize your kitchen.
She places berries in porcelain and grapes in a lovely glass bowl. Lindsay showed us how she beautifies her fridge every 2 weeks.
So I think we're gonna fill in some of the blanks with some candles.
Yep, Lindsay puts LED candles in her fridge. And check out that bust of a woman in a turkey. Milk gets poured into pretty glass vases, and edible flowers go into vases that look like books. So along with your groceries, you may want to pick up some fridge decorations too.
How many of you guys have seen Fridgescaping on TikTok?
So obviously I just saw this on TikTok and was obsessed. The things that I can do with this is right up my alley. These flowers came from my garden today. Everything right there came from my garden today.
Is it just me, or is the fridge feeling left out of the fall festivities? It's like, come on, even the front porch has pumpkins. When you're a grocery head like me, you know the minute the leaves start changing, you want to feel like you're in a pumpkin patch 24/7. And nothing says fall quite like this sign because it literally says fall. And now each time I grab a snack, I feel immersed in an autumnal wonderland, as one should when they open their fridge.
This is what I'd like to refer to as peak consumerism brain rot. Let's discuss Fridgescaping and the unhinged American obsession with commodity fetishism. In recent months, Fridgescaping has become the newest fridge decorating trend. Some fridgescapes are just generalized decorated fridges, and others have very specific themes, like Halloween-themed fridgescapes, fall-themed fridgescapes, Golden Girls-themed fridgescapes, and even Mexican-themed fridgescapes. Many traditional fridgescapes have garden themes. People are putting things like framed pictures of their pets, candles, bird figurines, statues of Mary and baby Jesus, and everything that you could think of that would be great in almost any other part of your house, but inside of your refrigerator. But Fridgescaping did not start on TikTok. Kathy Perdue, a retired designer and former lifestyle blogger, first coined the term in a 2011 blog post. Perdue's version of Fridgescaping was much more akin to restocking and not nearly as dramatic. She wrote in her blog how Fridgescaping for her was when she cleaned out her refrigerator and stored her produce and eggs in aesthetic containers. She wrote in her blog, "Why not put your everyday food items in pretty containers and have something pretty to look at when you open the door?" So if you saw my clean talk and restocking content video, you know that I think that restocking your refrigerator in a super aesthetic way is ridiculous, right? But at least I can say that that was a little bit less ridiculous than decorating the inside of your refrigerator. Social media has taken it to new extremes because that's what social media does. Lindsay Judish, an avid fridgescaper who you saw at the top of this video, told CNN all about her passion for fridgescaping, where she said that she curates her grocery list around her themes. When her fridge became a quote-unquote enchanted forest, she filled it with edible flowers from her garden so that she can quote eat like a fairy. And for a fridge inspired by the historical time-traveling TV show Outlander, she specifically picked out produce that would only have been available to the American colonies pre-Revolutionary War. And she says that while it's painstaking work, designing a new theme every 2 weeks, opening her fridge every day provides her with an instant dopamine rush. Allison Hester, a Charlotte-based photographer who's known for foraging and gardening content, is also a popular fridgescaper. She told Food and Wine magazine, quote, "I saw a video where someone had an orchid in their fridge and everything was in an aesthetic jar or picture frame, and it just lit up my dopamine centers." She created a viral fridgescaping video of her quote-unquote girl fridge based on the insufferable girl dinner trend, because of course grown women need girly fridges. Jennifer Taylor has amassed thousands of views of her quote-unquote granny chic fridgescaping content. And now as fridgescaping continues to spread, it's been covered by a number of major news organizations like the New York Times, CNN, as we mentioned earlier, and the Washington Post, among others. Do I think that this is a widespread hobby that a significant amount of people are partaking in? Absolutely not. People have jobs and lives and much better things to do. Who else has time to decorate the inside of their refrigerator but someone with a lot of time to waste? This is a hobby of privilege and excess leisure time. In E.P. Thompson's book, The Making of the English Working Class, he states, "The leisure and luxury of the wealthy stands in stark contrast to the toil and drudgery of the working class, reinforcing the class divide. The time that divides the wealthy from the working class, who have to literally beg their employers for days off from work and don't even have enough time for themselves, let alone time to decorate inside of their refrigerator. Working class folks are tossing and turning in bed because they have a really important deadline coming up, getting little sleep, waking up at the crack of dawn to get ready to go to work, commute to work, arriving at work for at least 8 hours a day, coming back home, having little time to spend for themselves, and doing that at least 5 days a week, sometimes even more. The last thing that any working class person is waking up and saying is, let me go to the flower shop and buy some flowers, and then let me go down to the CVS and print out some pictures, buy some picture frames, all so that I can put it inside of my refrigerator. The last thing that any working class person is doing is opening up their refrigerator just to sightsee, like, wow, this really helps to alleviate my stress, is looking inside of my picture frame filled refrigerator. These are not the hobbies of people with lives. These are not the hobbies of people who work tooth and nail to have jobs that don't even keep up with the cost of living. Now, this is a hobby of people who have too much time on their hands to waste. Honestly, this is a micro trend that's probably going to be fleeting just like all the rest. It'll probably go the way of the dinosaur in 6 to 8 months. But it still sparks concern because of the hundreds of thousands of likes that these posts are accumulating and the millions of views that they get. There is some interest from people to participate in this. Too much, in fact. And it speaks to a larger feature of American society that we've talked about in the past on this channel, commodity fetishism, which is exactly what it sounds like, right? Worshipping your commodities beyond their basic utility, but because of the aesthetics, because of what they say as a social symbol. How far gone are we as a society that something as simple as a refrigerator has become a class symbol, an aesthetic? One of my earliest memories of a refrigerator being perceived as a class symbol is the iconic moment on Real Housewives of Atlanta, where Kenya Moore was staying in the hotel for months and Nene pulls up to her hotel, famously saying, "The ghetto, the ghetto, the ghetto." And then she arrives to Kenya's hotel room, absolutely aghast at the fact that Kenya had, of all things, a white refrigerator.
And it has a white refrigerator. I was like, oh, not a white refrigerator, girl.
It was in that moment that I knew that refrigerators were not just a place to keep your food cold, but also a class symbol. And white refrigerators were never perceived the same again. They're now seen as a sign of poverty. White refrigerators were the bee's knees back in the 80s and 90s, but at the turn of the 21st century, stainless steel entered the chat. I will admit, stylistically, I do prefer a stainless steel refrigerator, but I also have to ask myself, I'm like, does it really matter? As long as it is functional, that's all that really matters. The exterior of your refrigerator is one thing entirely, but now social media has made it so that your interior of your refrigerator is also important. It also has to portray a high-class aesthetic, because how else are you going to sightsee in the middle of your day and lift up your dopamine? In the midst of a record number of people experiencing financial distress, there are still people who do not know what to do with their money. Okay? They don't want to save their money. They want to spend their money. But if you want to spend your money, you can spend it on mutual aid. There are people in need, hundreds of thousands, millions, in fact. And instead of donating it to mutual aid, donating it to someone in need, or saving it because you have the money to spare, clearly, people are spending their money on useless things over and over and over again. And let's talk more about how fridgescaping is a sign of a lack of community in a hyper-consumerist world. Capitalist individualism undermines collective action, undermines community building. Of course, I don't know what the communities of these fridgescaping enthusiasts look like, but from the outside looking in, fridgescaping in my opinion, looks like another case of people prioritizing their personal consumption over collective well-being. In Herbert Marcuse's book, One-Dimensional Man, Marcuse argues that advanced industrial society generates false needs, which are imposed by social controls to perpetuate existing structures of consumption and production. Fridgescaping, because it is absolutely ridiculous, unnecessary, decorative pursuit, is a prime example of manufacturing false needs that alienate individuals from meaningful community engagement and meaningful social engagement. Marcuse said in his book, the people recognize themselves in their commodities. They find their soul in their automobile, hi-fi set, split-level home, and kitchen equipment. This really applies to Fridgescaping, where people express their identities and status through the interior organization and decoration of all things, their refrigerators. Marcuse criticized how hyper-consumerist culture promotes conformity by encouraging people to define themselves through their material possessions, rather than their actions or community contributions. He said that the products indoctrinate and manipulate. They promote a false consciousness which is immune against its falsehood. Fridgescaping creates a sense of identity rooted in the visual aspect of their commodities. And it perpetuates this idea that the more one consumes, the more you decorate your refrigerator with a new theme every week, the better your life is despite the emptiness of these actions. Americans are so lonely and atomized that they spend their time doing useless activities like Fridgescaping, oftentimes because of the lack of community. Bell Hooks' book, Where We Stand, Class Matters, really speaks to this phenomenon, this sense of loneliness that's facilitated by capitalist consumerist culture. In the book, Bell Hooks states, quote, "Consumer culture offers a fantasy of fulfillment, but in the end, we are left isolated, yearning for the very thing we have given up, meaningful relationships and community. The picture frames and books and flowers become their friends because we've lost our communities. Hustle culture means that we're more divided from each other than we've ever been. We're hoarding resources because we have this individualistic mentality. We're always trying to one-up someone, one-up our neighbor, rather than sharing with our neighbors." Many of these popular Fridgescapers are citing that Fridgescaping provides them with this dopamine rush. That's why they do it. And it really does speak to this idea of fantasy, a fantasy of fulfillment. Because beyond the fleeting sense of that dopamine rush hitting you, it doesn't last. It's not going to be fulfilling in the long run because it's not a useful feeling. People are trying to fill their voids and constantly trying to chase that dopamine rush by buying more and more useless things instead of investing long-term in sustaining your communities. Fridgescaping is yet another example of the capitalist obsession with aesthetics, with wealth signaling, with hyper-consumerist culture. I don't feel like I need to tell you not to participate in this trend because you probably know better, right? I believe you have the good sense to know better. But I will say that although this is an extreme representation with the obsession with just overconsumption and commodity fetishism, there are still enough people buying exorbitant, excessive products that they do not need in the world. And we see that every day on social media. We talk about them a lot on this channel. So while it may not be Fridgescaping, it may be your shoe collection in your closet that you're fetishizing, or your purse collection. It might be your tech collection. It might be your makeup collection. You may not be putting these items in the fridge, at least I hope not, but you're still fetishizing them. You're still hoarding them. And we need to look deeper as to why we do it, because the products might change, but the motivations are still the same. We're still seeking that dopamine rush. The end result is still the same, wastefulness. And we're refusing to interrogate how capitalism makes us sad and lonely, and how it makes us feel like we need to buy ridiculous things or keep up with the Joneses. Instead of addressing the root causes of our discontent, we put a band-aid on a gushing wound. And so to wrap things up, Fridgescaping is just the latest manifestation of our obsession with materialism and superficiality, with our obsession with aesthetics. And on this channel, we talk a lot about the root causes of overconsumption, wealth aesthetics, and other social media cultures that correlate directly with real life, real world issues. So if you want more content like that, then definitely stick around because we have a lot more where that came from. I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on this Fridgescaping trend? Please tell me that you've never tried it. You probably haven't. I know you're smarter than that. I know it's kind of insulting to even insinuate that you might have, but nevertheless, don't be shy. I would love to hear from you all about the tomfoolery that is Fridgescaping. And if you liked today's video, definitely give it a thumbs up. And if you really liked it and you want more content like this, definitely hit that subscribe button. And you can find me on my social media profiles down here, as well as my Patreon, where you can join for as little as $1.50 a month. And it really helps to support my channel and keep the virtual lights on, so to speak. Besides all that, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all next time.